stupid, old man. You don't get to rush this.
Welcome to Decoding TV. Today, we are going to compare that infamous scene in the video game with what happens in the show. Spoilers for the video game and the show right here on this video. And yeah, let's talk about it, right? In this episode, Joel dies. We're going to talk about how that scene played out in the game versus how it played out in the show. In the video game, the way Joel's name is revealed is very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Joel says his name is Joel.
This is my brother.
Joe.
He introduces himself, and then it immediately changes the mood in the room. And Abby shoots him in the legs like immediately.
Dude, it is the shotgun blast.
Yeah.
Is so, or rifle, whatever it is, like the gun blast.
It's a shotgun, yeah.
It's so much more brutal in the video. Like in the video game, I've watched this scene before. It was years ago, but I winced at its depiction in the video game. And in the show, I mean, it's still brutal, but I don't know. There was something about the show.
There's a huge lead up. There's a huge lead up, right?
Whereas in the game, the moment between them all, the room realizing it's Joel, to Abby grabbing the shotgun and just blasting the fuck out of his leg feels like almost instantaneous. It's obviously longer than that.
They'll act like you heard of us or something.
Because they have.
But the television show is really kind of milking leading up to that moment.
And he is Joel.
Jackson.
And the video game is a bit more like, it grabs you by the collar.
Yeah.
And just like Abby just acts. She has waited for this moment. She is not wasting her time, and she's going to act. And there's more of a dance that's happening in the television version of the scene.
Well, I think the biggest change, right, is first of all, you said it's more brutal in the video game, but I think the TV show is actually much more graphic. Because I
think those are different things, though. Right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Viscerally, I think you do feel it more in the video game. But yeah, the TV show is more graphic. I think for a variety of reasons. But we can kind of discuss the effect of that. In the video game, Joel says his name, and then everyone's like, "Oh, he's the guy we're actually looking for." Abby shoots him in the legs, and then Joel is very recalcitrant, and he's like, hey, you better just say whatever speech you got prepared. And
why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed? Get this over with.
Let's get this over with. And she says, you don't get to rush this.
You don't get to rush this.
And then she hits him in the golf club in the head with a golf club, and then cut to black. And then the next time we see Joel, he's like near death and on the ground, and Ellie is coming in the room. And that's it. That's the whole interaction. And we don't know if Abby said jack shit during that time period. Like, we don't know if Abby spilled her heart out. We don't know Abby might have told Joel nothing about why she's trying to kill him.
I suspect she didn't. Like, that was always my read on that scene.
Right.
I obviously can't, not in the room, but like my read on how that played out in the video game was Abby was singularly minded, singularly focused, and the only reason she's asked to stop is because everyone has gotten uncomfortable with her beating the shit out of this pound of flesh, and they all want to leave before things get out of hand or people come looking for him. And I actually thought it was a pretty clever. It makes the scene play really differently, but it almost felt like that was a call and response between the game and the television show, where the game cuts off the villain monologue that I'm the biggest moment in your life right now. Like, this is all you've led up to. Like, just get on with it. And that speech doesn't happen, but it almost feels like I wouldn't be shocked if did Neil Druckmann have like a draft of a speech that Abby was going to give, never gave it. And then it just gets transposed to the television show where there's an opportunity for her to do the big wind up villainous monologue and explaining your emotional state. And they still kind of achieve a similar sort of conclusion to the whole interaction, which is then Joel just being like, shut the fuck up. He cuts her off. It just happens in a different way, but it's in line with, if you're going to portray Abby this way, especially given the physicality differences, what she's making up for that is in like emotions and like sort of
Yes.
like viscerally
Yeah.
acting out the lack of the like literal physical physicality of Abby in the video game. So it made sense for her to kind of have a wind up, so to speak, with Joel in a way that the video game, kind of avoided by the sheer physicality of Abby as a character.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, is that like in place of the sheer physicality, they have, like everything, Caitlin Deaver's whole monologue, basically. That's what subs in, is like, but as we discussed in the main podcast on Decoding TV, like I just don't know why they did the Abby thing this way. Like, if you're gonna introduce Abby's motivations, what was the function of introducing Abby's motivations if you're just gonna have Abby kill Joel in the second episode? Because there's so much you get of shock from the show. Like, it does not become clear until much later in the game, like why Abby killed Joel. Am I correct about that? I think that's right?
I think so. It's, this is a journey you and I'll we'll see how much we go on this together, in this first season. I don't know, but
you definitely don't know at this point in the game, right? Like why she killed him.
And certainly Ellie doesn't, right? Like
certainly Ellie doesn't,
I forget how it ends up breaking down. Like, is the reveal something that happens where you are Ellie? You know what I mean? Like, I forget how that act, but it's not now. It's
you. If you can get, if you're a astute, observant video game player, you might be able to like surmise. But like the game does not make it explicit, and the show makes it very explicit. And I just don't understand why they did it this way, because there's so much you get from the shock of this random character that you've been playing in the video game just straight up murdering the protagonist from the first game. Like that is such a shocking moment that could have happened in the show as well. Like, and they gave it up, and I don't know for what. Like, I don't think it was worth the trade-off. Like, the trade-off is you got Caitlin Deaver doing evil monologue, and like that's cool. That's like a nice thing. But like the shock is like a legendary. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's something that's like, wow, like you can imagine if Caitlin Deaver just comes in, no monologue, kills this guy, no explanation. Everyone's just like, what the hell just happened? Like, I think it would be even more buzzed about than it is right now, which is like already quite buzzed about. So I to this moment, maybe it'll become clear later, but to this moment, I don't know why they gave away the Abby game so early. I don't feel at this moment it was worth what they got out of it. Patrick, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, and we'll see if it's worth it, but I think I understand the logic from the creatives, which is that Abby is going to be a present character throughout every season of The Last of Us, the adaptation of Last of Us Part 2. Whereas in the video game, where you're left after this sequence, is a very extended Ellie sequence. Like, you kind of start Ellie's part of this story, of this game that is kind of folded into 2 chapters, really. And I think you and I think they could have had their cake and eat it too, is kind of what I think.
Yes.
Though. Like, I think if you'd kept Abby more mysterious through episode 2, and then we can still cut to Seattle and everything that's happening there and find ways of pulling back. I think that might have been more powerful. So I think the calculation to make her more empathetic and relatable early on, even if they were planning to like not follow the narrative structure of the game and like disappear Abby for long periods of time,
right,
and fold her in, because that's kind of the logic they've talked about. It's like, well, if you do what the game did, how do we get anyone to care about who this character is? Like, well, you don't need, part of the trick of the video game. I use trick in a complimentary sense, is that
you don't have to.
You don't have to. Like, it's what her actions that set off Ellie, and in many ways, and this will, this complicates the narrative that The Last of Us Part 2 sets out to tell, which is what you and I eventually chafed against, which was this singular, like, never-ending nihilistic violent streak. They kind of can't do that in the same way if they're adapting it this way, and maybe that makes for a better. I think there's a world, David, where I don't know if I end up like loving Last of Us Part 2, like as a result of this adaptation or this version of the story. I think there's a very real chance that I like it quite a bit more. And yet the compromise to get to there left a suitable amount of shock that could have been engineered out of the early. Like, I think they could have done both. I think we could have found ways to weave in Abby to create a more complete character for a television show, and yet took advantage of the mystery of what made that moment so powerful in the video game.
It's much more graphic in the show. They show like Abby shoving the broken golf club into Joel's neck. And I think the reason is because, as we have discussed, if you don't see a dead body in the show, then the person is not dead. In the video game, you just accept that he's dead. But in the show, people will be like, maybe Joel didn't die or whatever the hell. And so they have to show Abby shoving in a golf club into Joel's neck, or else you won't believe he's died.
Is he going to come back as an infected?
They also show Abby torturing Joel in a way that they didn't show in the game.
Yeah.
It's much more like left to the imagination in the game. And so, yeah. I think those also, in addition to Abby's monologuing, stand in for Abby, like making Abby into a more menacing character. So, but we see the aftermath as well. We see them going back to base, and it's much more like mournful in the show. In the game, like, because the show is divided into episodes, they needed to give this episode closure. In the game, you're just like, I think Dina finds Ellie in the game, and then the next thing you know, Joel is buried and you're back in the town. There's no scene where they're dragging Joel's body back in the game. And so I do appreciate that they made this, sequence kind of have that closure there. So anyway, some reflections on some of the big differences between the show and the game. Patrick, any other thoughts? I know you had said like the lighting is very different. They had to let Joel see what was going on in the distance in order to kind of have the dynamics they wanted in the show. But I largely agree, it was much more threatening and menacing in the game than in the show.
Yeah, I think it led to the. Now, granted, I think this ends up being sort of, I guess, thematically appropriate if we are kind of lifting a bit of the mystery off Abby. Then, like, the darkness in that scene in the game was part of the menace. Like, we don't know who this is, why this is happening, and that added in like a kind of gross, upsetting quality to it. So here there's less of that. So maybe it made sense to not go down that route aesthetically, but there's a grimy nature, like it contributed to the upsetting feeling. That you were left with in the game, and they're just like they're just not attempting any of that here. I mean, it's still upsetting, but it's going for a different tone. For sure.
I can't get out of my head what Christian said about how these kids all look like they're from the CW, And I do think there's something to that where in the game, they feel like a much more cohesive group of people that want to do a mission. And in the show, it's like Abby is just out of control and these other people are just along for the ride for reasons, ? So I am curious how that dynamic is going to play out as the show goes on. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.